Hello, my dear beloved children. Today I want to continue the conversation about the Russian-Ukrainian conflict and tell you about its origins. In fact, this confrontation is an echo of the Second World War. And if you look closely at the countries that support the continuation of this conflict, you will see that these are mainly the same countries that at one time sided with Nazi Germany. This war continued for 80 years, but this time it was undeclared and fought secretly from behind the scenes. And throughout this period, the enemies of the Soviet Union consolidated their forces for a new attack. And of course, it is not the inhabitants of these countries who are to blame for this, but those who ruled them, and these were mainly puppets of the deep state, whose goal from time immemorial was the destruction of Russia as a center of spirituality and the seizure of its untold natural resources. Unable to crush it militarily, these countries began to slowly but surely destroy the Soviet Union from within, eventually achieving that the former Soviet republics declared themselves separate states. Ukraine, historically the most closely connected to Russia, was no exception. And the most monstrous sacrilege on the part of the deep state was the cultivation of hatred among Ukrainians towards everything Russian. Why did his plan work? Why was it a success in Ukraine but not in Russia? Why have Russian people never developed hatred towards Ukrainians? Let's start with Ukraine. In many ways, the globalists' plan was successful as a result of the Ukrainians being deprived of their once native Russian language, which, as was already mentioned in my previous message, carries a certain divine code. This was well known to the Draco reptiles, who stood at the origins of the Russian-Ukrainian conflict. That is why they did everything to exclude the Russian language from the energy and physical space of Ukraine, forbidding its residents to read, write, and even speak Russian. Thus they deprived millions of people of their historical roots and the great heritage of Russian literature and art, raising an entire generation of Ukrainians to hate everything Russian. And as a result, this mass propaganda of hostility towards Russia, the rewriting of its history and the complete eradication of the Russian language have led to the almost complete spiritual impoverishment of the people of Ukraine. That's where we'll stop today. The Father Absolute, who loves you immeasurably, spoke to you.